How well an animal survives is generally dictated by, and certainly influenced by, where it lives. Understanding the different aspects of wildlife habitat is important when looking at species and their ability to survive and reproduce. In this lesson, we will review various factors that help shape animal populations and their survival within Pennsylvania. Wildlife habitats are not static and change over time. This is known as succession. Plant succession is defined as the natural progression from one predominant vegetative type to another over time. As might be expected, as habitat evolves, the types of available food and cover change, and thus the suitability for various species of wildlife also changes. Here we see the early successional stage plants, such as grasses and forbs, herbaceous plants such as wildflowers and weeds, which are the first to grow, followed by transitional plants such as woody shrubs and brush, and finally you will find mature trees growing in the later stages of succession. Let's look closer at how wildlife species change with plant succession. Early successional habitat would be a grassy field with lots of herbaceous cover and plants that are short-lived, grow quickly, and need a lot of sun to thrive. Animals commonly found here are rabbits and voles. As the field ages, grasses and forbs become taller and thicker, scattered trees and shrubs begin to grow, and birds like field sparrows will nest and feed on insects. Later, woody brushy vegetation grows and there is an abundance of low cover, along with lots of soft mast or fruit. This successional stage provides prime habitat for mammals and also for birds like the cedar waxwings seen here. The vegetation found in this successional stage tends to live longer and is still relatively fast growing. This stage requires lots of light and will die back as trees grow up and provide shade. Pole stage forest is next in the successional stages, and it tends to be the least valuable habitat for wildlife. This is because it lacks the low cover and soft mast of the young forest, but it's not yet old enough to have habitat features like large tree cavities and hard mast, which are present in mature forests. This doesn't mean that you won't find wildlife here. However, it just means that this is not prime habitat. As succession continues and the forest matures further, the types of food and cover continue to change, as do the wildlife found there. In this habitat, you will find vegetation that is long-lived, shade-tolerant, and is relatively slow growing. The type of vegetation found in older forests produces an abundance of hard mast, such as acorn and hickory nuts. Wildlife, such as turkey, grouse, and squirrels, and white-tailed deer, feed on the hard mast, making this an important food source, especially in fall and winter. In addition to food types changing, cover changes in older forests as well. Cavities in trees are more abundant in forests with older trees and provide nest sites and cover for many species of birds and mammals. For example, woodpeckers, like this pileated woodpecker, Pennsylvania's largest woodpecker, create large rectangular cavities in older trees. Here's a closer look at an occupied pileated woodpecker cavity. The tiny brown creeper is another species that lives in this successional stage. It feeds on insects found in the cracks of the bark and nests under loose pieces of bark rather than making nest cavities. It is important to remember that forests constantly change. Whether there are natural or man-made clearings in the forest, the successional cycle will begin all over again. In addition to successional stages, another important aspect of forest habitat is vertical structure. Basically, different species of wildlife can be found in different vertical layers in the forest. In this image, you can see various stages of vertical structure. In the upper canopy of the forest, commonly found species include birds, such as the red-eyed vireo and scarlet tanager, as well as squirrels that nest high in the trees. In the middle canopy, you'll find birds like American redstart, black-throated blue warbler, and wood thrush. And finally, in the habitat closest to the ground, the understory, commonly found species include the ovenbird, grouse, woodcock, reptiles, and amphibians. Here is an example of one species that makes its home in the mid-layer. This wood thrush is on its nest in a spice bush, a common mid-layer plant. Some wildlife need to use a mix of food or cover, so their preferred habitat includes different successional stages next to each other. This is known as interspersion. The state bird of Pennsylvania, the ruffed grouse, thrives in areas with high interspersion. This photograph shows the type of habitat preferred by ruffed grouse. You see young forest in the front, which provides food and cover during summer, and older trees in the back would provide drumming logs for displaying males in spring. Other special habitat features such as rocky outcrops provide habitat for specific wildlife species such as rattlesnakes or wood rats. Wildlife species that are able to use a range of habitat types and stages are termed generalists, while those that are restricted to a particular habitat type or stage are called specialists. This is a continuum rather than a distinct grouping. For example, raccoons, crows are generalists, bears and downy woodpeckers are intermediate, and otters and scarlet tanagers are specialists. This concept is important because as habitat change, generalists are usually able to adapt, whereas specialists needs to have very specific habitat and therefore have difficulty adapting to changes in the environment. Another term you should be familiar with is the term fragmentation. Fragmentation occurs when large blocks of natural habitat are perforated by roads, housing development, and other types of disturbance. Although species that are generalists often do well in fragmented habitats, habitat quality for most specialists declines. Fragmentation can produce what is known as negative edge effects. For example, nest success of many forest birds is lower near edges because of high levels of nest predation by generalist predators such as blue jays, crows, and even house cats. Wildlife managers often talk about populations of animals. A population is a group of individuals of the same species occurring in the same area. For example, deer residing in a woodlot form a population. Populations increase in size through bursts and movement of animals into an area, and they decrease through deaths and movement out of an area. Another term that is related to population size is the term carrying capacity. This refers to the maximum number of animals in an area can sustain over a long period of time. In habitats where the abundance of a species is close to carrying capacity, numbers will fluctuate up and down with bursts and deaths, but will remain close to carrying capacity. Communities refer to multiple species occurring together in time and space and the interactions between them, including competition and predation. Understanding habitat requirements and how and why the abundance and diversity of wildlife changes as the habitat changes is an important step in understanding why wildlife populations change as humans modify the environment. This improved understanding then enables us to manage the land for the benefit of both wildlife and people.